Section 7. Peace and Freedom. Among the greatest gifts of the off-grid lifestyle are the greater peace and freedoms attained by participants. As an off-gridder during my youth and a partial off-gridder now, I can attest to the increased peace and freedom experienced when you disconnect. Peace replaces worry for fair responsibility and allows a harmonious and joyful life even if it is fast-paced and busy. There, freedom is demanded and gained by the off-grid individual while understanding that others diligently work to take it away. I believe this occurs naturally because of the way the system is artificially arranged. The off-grid lifestyle empowers you with knowledge, skills, and resources so you can gain your freedom and keep it. Peace is the harmonious, natural, calm, focused, and synchronized lifestyle that minimizes stress, noise, and sickness in your life. Peace leads to greater health, and this is among the most important gifts you may have as a human being. To be reminded of the importance of health, just recall the last time you were unable to function normally due to a bad headache, a virus, or a disabling injury. I recently contracted COVID-19, luckily with mild symptoms, and suddenly I put health back on its pedestal. If you're healthy, I can assure you that you don't want to get sick. At times, severe headaches can suddenly stop you on your tracks if you suffer from them and rudely remind you of how precious health is. The stresses of the rat race, especially in large cities or industrialized environments, will likely cause reactions that can affect your health. Few of us counterback stress in our high-stress lifestyles, and we are even taught to increase stress levels to prove our worth as producers at work or in society at large. For example, I worked at a fuel station maintenance company in South Florida many years ago, and there was clearly a culture of wasted resources and a competition of bodily endurance among the workers. There, the longer days you worked and the more consecutive days without sleep working on call, it seemed you were valued more as an employee. And I have encountered similar cultures in many other employment places here in America. There are clear and established correlations between high stress, low health, and early death. And as many underestimate, mental health is affected by stress too, perhaps more than bodily health. As a more armed and lethal public, especially here in the U.S., mental health is more critical than ever. With alarming and increasing rates of murder and suicide, mental health is at the center of the storm on these matters. With much reason, a peaceful and less stressful lifestyle is sorely needed. I believe the many benefits of off-grid living culminate in this more peaceful, health-promoting lifestyle. Although it may seem counterintuitive, how you may be more peaceful when you have to engage in seemingly more work. After all, in an off-grid lifestyle, you would be taking a lot of automated systems offline and handling them yourself, right? However, despite this and other facts, I still believe this lifestyle promotes peace in your life and the world around you, even under increased activity. This happens by getting out of debt, engaging in more meaningful work, doing more with less, and feeling less need to earn more income, allowing more time for yourself and loved ones, improving your diet, improving your learning, engaging in more meaningful and leisure experiences. So let me develop some of these reasons. Peace, as defined here, is not doing less or remaining silent or calm. Although those may help, my peace is the lack of worry, or at least highly minimized worry. Less worries about debts, promises, commitments, and bets. The off-grid lifestyle reminds you to stay away from those that require you to get into unreasonable and harmful compacts. And the off-grid lifestyle allows you to begin undoing the knots of harmful decisions you may have tied over the years. In light of an off-grid lifestyle, I define freedom as the ability to do more of what you want to do and have less unreasonable and harmful restrictions imposed on you by your peers, government, and corporations. There are many types of freedom that may become a reality through living off the grid. You may become financially free, socially free, and even physically free. Your movements and time may become more available and democratic. By democratic, I mean having more power to choose, especially choices that you should be free to make or not make, and have more choices instead of singular or few similar ones. Having freedom to choose also involves having real choices. By real, I mean that choices are between two or more viable and different alternatives, not being given a good choice and another that no one would want. For example, work for money or suffer dearly. How does living off-grid promote personal peace? Broadly speaking, I find there are two types of peace, personal and interpersonal. And the opposite of peace can be conflict, war, chaos, suffering, violence, etc. You may have peace within you, with yourself, in your life. This is personal peace. You may also have peace with others, your neighbor, your community, other communities, other nations, etc. This I call interpersonal peace. I believe that, to achieve both types of peace, you must start gaining peace within you first, then in your immediate space. I strongly believe living off-grid allows you to begin claiming and securing your personal peace by turning stuff off. Turn off the noise, excessive lights, economic pressures, and toxic social pressure. Turn off the noise. Our modern societies are deafening with noise. I believe we evolved our hearing to help with our survival, to detect sounds and look for threats in those sounds. There are noises everywhere in our cities, towns, and even our homes and bedrooms. Each sound affects our stress, even if just a little, accumulating to cause perhaps significant stress during each day. Jackhammers, vehicle sirens, and air conditioning equipment, for example, all emit noises that we hear and likely get affected by. Our hearing is powerful, and in a quiet environment, we may hear sounds miles away. We may even hear our own hearts beat during quiet hours of our days. Living off the grid may allow you to turn off some of these stressing sounds in your immediate living space. Your air conditioner is perhaps the most noticeable sound, coming on and off intermittently. These humming and thumping sounds may interrupt moments of serene silence, concentration, or meditation. And I believe they introduce an artificial, machine-like feeling to your existence. Additionally, cell phone calls and messages, alarm chimes from devices, equipment cooling fans, televisions, and more all add distracting and stressing noises to your personal space, especially when these items are on constantly during your woke and sleeping hours, like your cell phone. Some people are known to turn on their television sets when they rise in the morning and keep it on throughout the day, then go to sleep watching it. The same may occur with cell phones. Many people leave their cell phone videos or TV on play mode even during sleep. For example, on YouTube, there are many 8-hour-long videos to help you sleep. Amazingly stupid. Many of us have become extensions of our electronic devices, like smartphones, laptop computers, and television sets. I have witnessed folks that cannot walk a few steps without looking at their smartphone screen. I've even seen folks cross the road, walk around busy areas, and drive a vehicle, all while staring intently at their smartphone screen. Amazingly stupid. It seems that everywhere I go, I see people facing their cell phone, thumb raised, ready to tap. And that remains their default body posture for as long as I study them, and surely long after they leave my studious gaze. I was a victim of many of these abhorrent habits until just recently. Then, I wanted to fill every minute of my day with what I considered learning and entertainment with multiple devices. I call this screen hopping, where you switch from device screen to device screen throughout your entire day. It really is a phenomenon occurring at an alarming regularity. Try to notice it yourself. When you live off the grid on a limited budget, as most people will, you must begin to look for opportunities to save resources, especially energy, as you will only power your electronics and appliances with the limited charge in your batteries or the costly gas you may have in your obnoxious generator. So your time to have your television and devices on should be severely curtailed when you live off-grid. Plus, your time to have your air conditioner on for cooling or heating may be even more curtailed, as these generally take much more energy to run. Thus, all the noise these things generate are limited and sometimes eliminated. You may find alternatives to your air conditioner and even your smart devices or television. You may choose to open up windows and enjoy the fresh breeze instead of your air conditioner. Or you may opt to read from paper or an electronic ink device. Choices based on efficiency will likely minimize the noises in your space or home, and will surely minimize the time that any noise may be on. And you may experience periods of serene silence that can help you begin to calm down and synchronize many aspects of your mind and body. With less noise, you will surely sleep more restfully and deeply, breathe more regularly and deeply, improve your heart functions and circulation, maintain a healthier body posture, gain more focus and insight, among many more benefits. Even when off-grid, you may still hear and experience noise from outside of your space or home, but those are often beyond your control depending on your location or place of living. But you may learn to cope with those distant noises a lot better than those close to you. And there are many methods to minimize outside noise too. Insulation, barriers, and isolation are a few solutions for limiting or blocking outside noise. With more details coming in part 3 of this text, insulation are sound-absorbing materials that can be installed in walls, ceilings, and floors to minimize outside noise. Additionally, barriers, physical structures erected between you and a source of noise, can be constructed of sound-absorbing or sound-deflecting shape and materials. And they can be strategically placed between you and noise. Finally, isolation is just putting some distance between you and sources of noise. For example, if your neighbor has a noisy machine shop just a few meters from your space, as a last resort, you may consider moving away from there and into a less noisy place. But isolation has many disadvantages you may want to consider too. Turn off lights. Too much light causes discomfort, heat, and stress. I argue that we have evolved over the millennia to be healthier and happier under limited light conditions. Depending on our global position, a day's sunlight hours may last from 6 to 12 hours. This is the time period when our bodies are naturally more active and when most of us do most of our daily tasks. With artificial lighting, we've extended our active hours during the day. And we have pushed our bodies to go for much longer than in most of our past as a species. This push has been increasingly going on, probably since the discovery of fire, but especially so since the invention of artificial light. Artificial light has enabled many comforts and safety around our homes, in places of work, in our hospitals, cities, and more. But it too has robbed us of much-needed quality rest, darkness, and our natural visual cycles. Sleep is definitely and negatively impacted by artificial light. The quality of our sleep is especially affected, thus the reason why most health experts recommend people not watch a bright screen in the last hours of your day. This advice is routinely ignored by, perhaps, most people in the world. Many people's sleeping time is often shortened by sports games, movies, and other shows shown on television during prime hours. By prime, meaning the time when most working people are at home, from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Additionally, screened devices are replacing and increasing the time we watch content. Many of us wake up early to work in the morning hours, often at 5 or 6 a.m. And many of us watch television or other screens from daybreak to well past 9 p.m. In fact, on average, Americans watch about 2.5 hours of television per day, and this average increases with age of the viewer. In fact, Americans were found to watch TV the most between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m., and nearly 37% stayed up late until 11 p.m. watching TV. At times, I have experienced going to sleep without watching any television before bed, and the improvement to my sleep quality was stunning. The off-grid lifestyle necessitates the saving of energy and minimizing the use of artificial lights, televisions, or any energy-using devices during nighttime hours. Especially if you depend on solar energy, using energy frivolously during non-sunlight hours is wasteful. For example, I have my internet and TV equipment running on solar batteries at the moment, and they can only run for a few hours per day, so I have to ration my internet and screen time. Even more energy rationing is needed on cloudy days, as my system depends on solar light to recharge. An efficient and health-oriented mentality mandates to keep artificial equipment off during hours of darkness. This not only maximizes peaceful and natural quality rest, but also allows for your body's natural cycles to return. You may have experienced the daily gloom sometime in your life. If you've been lucky to have spent extended time in remote or non-industrialized locations, you've likely experienced it often. The gloom is the evening hours of the day transitioning from daylight to darkness. I've experienced this period as one of peace and reflection, and where I visually transfer to a nighttime mode. A period of needed pause and tranquility that I believe comes naturally. I've also noticed that interrupting this period with artificial light, noise, or needless activity interrupts this natural transition and denies you certain health and spiritual benefits. You may recover from interrupting that transition, but you may feel, as I certainly have, that you need it. I believe the body's many natural cycles that often get interrupted by the stressors of modern society cause harm to us. And, however minute each one is, they likely accumulate. These visually driven transitions are also called circadian rhythms and are essential for health and well-being. I believe the body is evolved to detect this visual gradient during the day and prepare for different stages in your body functions depending on these visual cues. The flashing of our television or device screens and the sudden turning of a bright light in a room surely disrupts these cues, and your brain may throw your body into confused modes. Again, when living a highly efficient off-grid lifestyle, it is wise to allow the daylight to come and go naturally. And it is wise to limit artificial light to sparingly short periods only during the daylight hours. I believe you do not need any artificial light during most days if you plan your day accordingly. And if you live in an area with abundant sunlight, this is even more true. This practice would be optimal for both your body and the efficiency of your electricity supply. Turn off economic pressures. Living off the grid, in the way I prescribe here, saves you money. Some so-called off-gridders have only transferred all of their high-consumption and inefficient lifestyle from fossil fuel sources to massive alternative energy sources, so to keep their lavish lifestyle using renewables. This is not my goal here. My goals are, generally, to save energy, cut waste, switch to greener and cheaper alternatives, and save money. And not only do I advocate saving money needlessly, I advocate needing less of your money. When you are more efficient on multiple fronts, you become less dependent on the economy, thus less dependent on money. By extension, if you need less money, you don't need to chase after it as much. Also, by lessening your bills and in many instances turning them off altogether, you lessen the economic pressure on you. Economic pressure is real and it causes considerable stress. I estimate that the inability to pay for goods and services is among the most stressful factors for most working independent people throughout the industrial world. Again, I believe we are taught to pay for just about everything by the time we become working adults. This naturally makes making money to pay for all a major priority for most of us. For many, economic concerns are so stressful that their health is severely affected. It has been found that higher average income seems to correlate with better health. So it is reasonable to accept, and data shows, that poverty is a major cause of low health. But I believe the lack of money is not what causes less health, but is the lack of access to healthcare, healthy lifestyles, as well as the higher stress that these bring. So, when you need less money, you can work less and invest time more in yourself and your loved ones. More time to eat well, exercise, and engage in healthier activities. Also, these investments may pay out in the form of higher knowledge and specialty skills, all of which may bring you more income or further lessen your need for income. These possibly may result in a convergence of benefits, all of which improve your health. As I have alluded to before, when you can provide for your own water, food, communication, and energy needs freely, there is not so much else that you need to pay for. Ideally, perhaps, the only remaining major financial responsibilities that remain are shelter and transportation. And for working off-grid adults with a growing set of skills, these may be a fraction of what most other people have to worry about. Of course, I understand ideal situations such as these are not always attainable or practical. But even minimally lowering debt, bills, and other financial obligations can go a long way impacting your well-being. In summary, the lessened stress from economic pressures and the increased time for personal growth and leisure are two huge factors of benefit here. So, I believe, gradually or abruptly, turning off your economic pressures while living efficiently will surely help you live a more peaceful, healthier, and happier life. Turn off social pressures. Some peers may cherish you and help you achieve much in your life, but others may cause you ill with their unwanted pressure. I believe the more peers you come across, more of them are likely to pressure you into ill decisions. Ill decisions and actions with short or long-term effects may carry disadvantageous or harmful consequences. For example, the adage, "keeping up with the Joneses," reminds us of a popular tendency to want to emulate what others do, with little regard to its reasonableness. Many of our actions are driven by what peers will think of us, or what peers will see about us. I believe many of these peer-driven actions are done subconsciously, and many of us are so accustomed to operating under this peer-driven pressure that we hardly realize it. Although some of our peer-driven actions may be justifiable and even reasonable, I believe many of us become addicted to that peer approval and take increasingly less reasonable actions. These actions may saddle us with unnecessary debt, cause great strain in our family life, or cause us to believe we need to earn more money. I believe that greed and materialism are, in part, products of peer pressure. And wanting ever-increasing wealth, property, and luxury have become identifying traits in the lives of most city dwellers. These soul-rotting traits have become rampant and epidemic-like behaviors that are taught from old to young in a vicious cycle. And greed and materialism cause waste. It's just inevitable and opposite from an off-grid lifestyle. The luxury life is one of unnecessary and selfish uses of space, resources, time, labor, and more. Again, the antithesis of efficient living. The modern phenomena of the explosive use of social media has supercharged toxic peer pressure. In fact, an increasing body of studies are finding that social media negatively affects many people's behavior, self-image, and mental health. Of course, these effects are dependent on amount of use, age, other underlying problems, and other factors. But problems reported by the peer pressure coming from social media are undeniable and many, including bullying, hate-filled content, discrimination, and exposure to violent material. And social media is not free. It is a propaganda and advertising machine, feeding on a near constant stream of divisive and triggering content. Furthermore, social media has been known to constantly broadcast, amplify, and pump up the highly artificial and manicured celebrities. These popular idols often showcase the lifestyle of largesse and luxury, often accompanied by enviable looks and fitness, all while hiding all their negativity, creating a facade of near perfection, which harms most of us with less perfect lives. In other words, the harm comes from the assured failure of us to reach the unattainable level of happiness of these idols. And these constant streams of fantasy cumulatively fuel the many ill decisions and behaviors of our increasingly connected society. Living efficiently mandates making calculated and reasonable decisions. These are difficult to make if you live in a world of fluff. These sound and grounded decisions will likely improve our lives gradually. And these can be enhanced by peers, but only if these peers are thinking clearly and efficiently as well. For example, you may not get a reasonable answer if you ask a fabulously wealthy person how to need less money by downsizing. This wealthy individual likely has no frame of reference on the concepts of needing less money or downsizing. They are likely to glitch out if asked such a question, since they likely have spent most of their working lives spending massive amounts of excess energy trying to make ever more money, and would likely want to make more money to upsize. So to them, the question is just absurd, if it even registers. They are likely unaware that most of the world's population lives under some level of poverty. So your decisions must be based on broad calculations, learned experience, and perhaps other reasonable people's experiences. I do understand that informed decisions are best, and a variety of information produces better decisions. So minimizing toxic peer pressure may be advantageous in most instances where reasonable and quality decisions must be made. Peer pressure is not to be confused with peer input. Again, the unpressured and honest input from many peers may improve a decision if these inputs are honest and unbiased, limited in scope to your concern, and given by a large number of peers. For example, polls and surveys are a sort of peer input. The data collected by these polls are extremely valuable to find answers to certain questions. These are at times gathered from averages. There is a phenomenon that the average in a large and randomly selected collection of inputs may provide relatively accurate and useful predictions on countless questions or problems. The bell curve is a representation of this random collection of inputs. However, be aware that peers rarely provide random and/or unbiased inputs. They may be swayed by the same corrupted information consumed in social media and other poor sources. Living off the grid includes living mostly off the grasp of toxic social media. I personally have, years ago, unraveled my dependence on social media and rarely use it. I must admit, I routinely use a popular video sharing platform, which is sort of a social media platform, but I keep interactions with viewers at a minimum. The same with Facebook and other social media sites. I keep a very limited use. The problem with social media is the personal disconnection of users and its ability to present a facade of each user. Even when you know them personally, the lack of compassion, care, and tolerance is very apparent. And people feel emboldened, entitled, and incentivized to say, show, and share things that are exaggerated, untrue, offensive, divisive, or shocking. I wrote incentivized because social platforms have been found to amplify content that angers, enrages, shocks, saddens, disturbs, etc. That is their bread and butter. That is because hate-filled and anger-triggering content are the ones that are more readily shared, thus providing more views and clicks for the platform. In turn, those provide more advertising dollars to the social media companies. The user also feels that she or he benefits from posting outrageous content by getting more popular and increasing their likes or responses from others. Thus, more and more outrageous content is posted for an increasingly desensitized audience. It is like a race to the bottom, with people posting things ranging from nonsensical conspiracies to blatantly dangerous lies. Social media disinformation was just recently in the public discourse with widespread use of political manipulation in the 2016 and 2020 U.S. presidential campaigns. And the spread of disinformation and cook conspiracies about the COVID-19 pandemic, the war in Gaza, Ukraine, and others were rampant. It should be clearer how negative peer pressure can harm our decisions and our mental health. Disconnecting from the grid and living an efficiency-focused lifestyle may allow you to further minimize your reliance on peer approval and social media. And this lifestyle encourages you to avoid ill peer interactions altogether. Those peers that are wasteful, greedy, materialistic, discriminating, untrustworthy, etc. will naturally become less relevant in your life. And unless these peers are extremely tolerant, they will eventually shed away on their own. Some of your peers may become accepting of your noble and efficient ideals, and perhaps join you in similar efforts. That's great if it happens, but be prepared to shed some or many of your friends as you fully engage in a highly efficient lifestyle. Spending less money, less resources, and saving energy by not using your air conditioning and minimizing the use of other comforts, for example, may put strain on close relationships. But increased time for leisure and the increased personal investments in activity may offset these strains. You may also gain other or additional friendships during your off-grid efforts. And those may be more aligned with your true personality, thus more pleasant company. Since I am convinced that your interest in this broad set of values surround living off the grid, justice, efficiency, freedom, creativity, and reasonableness are values I believe you likely grew up with. Meaning, your experiences taught you to value these. So you'll naturally gravitate toward those that share those with you and value them. So feel fortunate if you are accompanied by those that share your values. And try to help to understand those that lack these experiences. But again, don't expect a warm reception from most. And accept that. That's okay too.
By Hector Vladimir, Georgia, USA, 2024.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Please look for the next episode soon, and please ensure to share this with your friends and family. And please like this content and subscribe as a sign of support and for me to continue to provide this type of content to more people like you. Lastly, if you wish to support this content further, please visit the links provided in this application. Thank you.